Back, everybody, to Real with Omar, still in season 2. My special guest today is none other than the owner of the Boogie Down Grind, as well as an adjunct professor at Princeton. I can keep on. She'll fill us in. Majora Carter. Majora and I met through a common friend, and about a month ago, we did an event here at the Boogie Down Grind in Hunts Point, and Majora was kind enough to grace us with her presence in terms of granting me an interview, and I really, really appreciate it, Majora. Tell me about the Boogie Down Grind first. Well, we're gonna unpack a lot today. So the first stop will be where we're at, right?
I bet.
The Boogie Down Grind. Why a coffee shop in Hunts Point?
Yeah, you know, the last coffee shop that I remember, because I grew up right here in Hunts Point, literally 2 blocks from where we're sitting right now. The last coffee shop was when I was in high school in the 1980s.
Wow.
And so there was no like gathering space, like other than community centers or the inside of health clinics, and which is sort of common in communities like the South Bronx, with low income, predominantly of color, and it's kind of like, places like this, we're led to believe that you're going to grow up, and if you're a smart kid, you're going to grow up and get out of here anyway. Right. So it wasn't the place to hang out. But the more I understood how these communities were designed literally designed, whether it was policies, the white supremacy, whatever we want to call it, right. It was made to believe that
Robert Moses, that type of stuff?
Yes, all of it. It's just like, it's all about, that our community, that there's nothing so much about our communities that's designed to make us want to stay and help improve them. We are literally taught to measure success by how far we get away from them. And as I learned to understand like how communities, like great communities, get that way and stay that way, I realized that it was places like coffee shops and cafes, the kind of places that help people gather and to show that your community is not just a place, it's an activity, right. But you need places in which to do the activity of community.
To knit the sweater.
Absolutely. Right. So if you don't have places where people can gather to show who they are and to see who else is there, people will leave. Right. And they will take all their talents, whether it's economic, whether it's artistic, they'll take all of it to someone else's neighborhood and enrich that. And I'm like, why are we not creating spaces like that for us?
Right.
And that's why the Boogie Down Grind exists.
Yeah. This reminds me of, so when I was growing up, the cool place to be was the Village.
Yes.
Right? So
exactly.
Everybody, wherever you lived, you
Yep.
got on the train,
Yep.
went down there, used to hang out, get off on Astor Place, and just walk around.
Exactly.
This reminds me of something, except, and I'm going to add to that, I want you to expand on that, is the hip hop part, right? So hip hop was born in the Bronx. I'm super, super proud of that. So what made you think of making it a hip hop? Because a coffee shop is a coffee shop, but this is a hip hop coffee shop, right?
So I'm an urban revitalization strategy consultant and real estate developer, which I grew into that, and we'll talk about that.
Okay.
But it was sort of clear that we knew people were leaving our communities to go to places like that.
Right.
And why do we know that? Because we actually surveyed them. And it was just like, yeah, we go to places that make us feel cool and blah, blah, blah. And it was like, okay. So on our own, we actually initially tried to get someone to run a coffee shop
here.
To do the
coffee shop? Okay.
Yeah, because we acquired some pretty very cheap leases. Okay. And so we were like, somebody's got to want to do this. Maybe Starbucks will want to come. Right. They didn't want to come.
Okay.
Nope.
Howard Schultz, shame on you. Go ahead.
Did not want to come. And so we decided to do it ourselves.
Right.
And so we partnered with Birch Coffee, which has a bunch of different coffee shops downtown, Roast House in Queens, and just really delicious coffee. And we were just like the quintessential little cute coffee shop with exposed brick and weathered wood, and it was just really cute and frou-frou. And then when we split from that partnership very amicably, we still use their coffee. We love them to pieces, but it was clear that we who our competition was, and
the bodegas.
No, not the bodega. No, they're not the bodegas, because people want that $1.50 coffee, they will get their $1.50 coffee.
Right.
But people who want the fancy stuff will go to Dunkin', which they think is more fancy, but it's really not. The quality is nowhere near as good, and frankly, neither is Starbucks. But that's okay. But that's where they'll go.
After this one.
Nah, I don't care. Go ahead, let
bring it on.
Bring it on, Howie. And anywho, so we knew that we had to kind of create not just the space, but something that would appeal to our own community and honor our own legacy.
Right.
And so hip hop was clear.
Right.
It was just we need to pay homage, to who we are, as a community and our culture. And so like on the walls here, it's like literally the wallpaper are, images, seminal figures of hip hop.
Right.
And it's the walls are covered by it. Even out what we call, this is our urban archaeology. So the signage that is sort of second
From the
plays as
neighborhood?
arts.
Right,
Yep.
right.
All like, old signs from the neighborhood. Like this one behind us is the Dancers Every Night side from one of the
We'll get a shot of that later.
crazy, the old strip club that was down the street that everybody in Hunts Point knew. So now it's here. It's just sort of like people do double takes, like looking in the window. It's still very funny. But really, we just wanted to pay that respect,
Right.
to our own community and sort of open it up. And that's why we'll do things like, open mic events or, musical events, art events, really showcasing the talent that's already here.
Showcasing the talent. So let's talk a little bit about, so I did an event here, right? We sponsored it. So that meant that everybody who drank, it was on me. And my whole purpose of that was to show that people in any neighborhood have value,
Yes.
right? And everybody knows the price of everything, but the value is you can't really.
Right.
So in terms of when you first opened, what were your primary supporters? Like who was the first people? Were it just young kids, older kids?
You mean customers?
Yeah,
or?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, because we were the first, the funders in it.
Okay, of course. No, but listen, anybody
Right.
who owns anything has
Yes.
to put up their own before
Child.
anybody else will believe.
I know.
Right.
That's the hope. Let's talk about that
Okay.
later. Like
Okay.
actually building businesses and what that actually means, because I think there's also all sorts of crazy misconceptions about that too.
Yeah.
However, but what's beautiful is that I think the first folks that came out were the ones who actually helped us with the idea of it. The people
Okay.
who were like responded to
Did
the
you
survey.
have also you had a survey go out? Did you have consultants on how to design, or is this all homegrown?
We just did it.
Okay.
We didn't know what we were doing.
Okay.
But we just figured nobody's asking folks like what their hopes and dreams and aspirations are for their own community. And that's really was the focus of it. And it was just like, what do you want to see in your community?
Right. So
And-
they're probably taken aback.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're like,
people
what do you
were
mean?
like, No, yes, but once they realized that actually we weren't trying to take anything. It was more like what can we do within the confines of our own.
We're trying to give.
Yeah.
What can we give?
What we have, like what can we do? And it was just like, oh. And I think what was so beautiful, it was like all across the board. I mean, they were like, one of my favorites was this little old lady from Colombia who was just like, this is really good coffee,
Oh,
and
wow.
then like, for someone who's from like
Yeah, from
college,
Colombia.
just like
Yeah,
telling
yeah,
us
yeah,
like
yeah.
she's got like, this is really good. I was like,
Thank you.
I was like, okay, I'm good.
Yeah,
So
yeah. You got
but
the
it
blessing.
was all across the board, from like the little kids who dragged their parents in because we had these little teddy bear cookies, which they'd never seen before anywhere
Right.
like in the neighborhood, or just the teachers who were just like, this would be a nice place to like have a talk with one of my kids.
Nice.
Just like it was really just all across the board. But I think that the best part was actually using this space as a way to showcase the talent that's already in our own community,
Right.
where we were just the vessel and people would bring in their own events. Like, for example, there was a young man, actually also from Colombia,
Okay.
who he was this amazing young man. He was a dreamer. And so up until just recently, it wasn't actually, quote unquote, documented and legally
Okay.
documented.
Okay.
And so what he did was actually he had to teach himself and his family how to be financially literate.
Oh, wow.
I mean, it was
That's monster. That's
exactly
Big. That's a big undertaking.
And
Yeah.
and so what he wanted to do was basically, he's like, I learned so much. I want to do a workshop here,
Nice.
and he did. And
Okay.
and basically
How's attendance?
it was fantastic. We had
Yeah.
like 40 people. Like
Wow.
early on a Saturday morning, like
Wow.
roll up in here, all back here. He had his presentation up on these screens,
Nice.
and he came in a suit because he took it very seriously.
Beautiful.
And it was the most beautiful, beautiful thing. And taught people things like, if you get a credit card, get one in your child's name. Don't give it to your kid,
Right,
to
right, right.
spend.
You're just
but
building them.
building
Right.
up their credit. And people were like, what? And they were like, no one ever told us this kind of stuff before. And here it was, like a member of our community sharing with them. And all we did was open up the space.
Right.
And he felt welcome because he's like, I've never had a chance to talk like to a large amount of people.
A group of people, yeah.
And it was beautiful. It was really.
I think a lot of exclusions in, I want to say in America. Like, I love America, right? America is the greatest country in the world, I believe.
Yeah,
I'm proud to be American.
I'd agree.
But I also know that if you don't know the rules of engagement, you can't properly play, right? So I think that's the part. Like, a lot of people. I don't think people are trying to withhold information because with the internet, there's so much information, But now the challenge is what's real information and what's good information compared to what's somebody's made it up.
Oh, oof.
Right?
Yes, exactly.
So
Yeah, but I do think that unfortunately, thanks to whether it's systemic racism, white supremacy, there actually have been things that were withheld, from us, from access to capital, to access, to the type of networking and resources that would actually allow us to grow economically and socially. No doubt, I think that is absolutely true. However, you're 100% right in terms of like what do we do and how do you filter out that information?
yeah.
And
I don't think there's enough people of our complexion
No.
that are trying to help and just with no strings attached,
Yeah.
right? Just hey man, this is what I would do.
Right.
Of course, it can become a crusade that just consumes you because, unfortunately, we all have to make a living to live our lives. So
And it has.
to
Yeah.
do shows like this, to have people like you on there, it's super important for me to showcase that, we're aware of the discrepancies.
Yep.
If you approach somebody, like obviously, if time being, like having some sort of etiquette, like
Yeah.
you're out in the middle of the street, hey man, I'm like, listen guy, I'm with my wife right now, but you know what I'm saying, but with etiquette, yeah man, of course we want to share, we want to share the information. I don't think there's enough of that going on. Like I did an event here. I'm not out there trying to do seminars where I'm charging people at the door, stuff like that. I'm just trying to look, man, I want to make an impact, right? So besides living my life and making a living, I want to leave an impact on my culture. And I think that's, if you take your why becomes bigger than you,
Amen.
It becomes easier to move forward.
Right. And it's super important. And I think that's why it is so important for folks like us, to be out there working. And I think also being seen working together.
Yeah. I think collaboration is key right now because people feel like today I tagged somebody. I think I tagged Boogie Down Ground too about political, social, economical. They're all associated, right? Progress is progress. Like you can't have, they don't live in vacuums. And what you have to do is you have to, like, if you're doing well here, then not attach, but align yourself with people of similar thinking, that the overall message can be amplified.
Right.
And I think we lose that because it's almost like a point of, I don't want to say elitism, but it's almost like people they make a little success and they feel like they have to guard it.
Yes.
And I believe the more you give, the more you can get back.
And that's, I think, I've been on this kick for a little while, so just bear with me.
I'm ready.
But I feel like that is one of the most extraordinarily, ways to look at how effective white supremacy is.
Okay.
Because white folks don't do that. Okay. White folks will always be supporting other white folks.
Yeah.
And it's like they know who to ask. Do you know who can help me with this?
Do this, yeah.
It's like, oh, my uncle does this. Talk to them.
Right. And they're networking without realizing that's just the way you do it.
It's just the way you do it.
Right.
And and they don't feel that by sharing that you lose it, you actually amplify it. But I think this goes back to whether colonialism, slavery, all of it. It's been like, if you, like, we've been led to distrust and mistrust each other so effectively that when one of us does something, it's kind of like, well, that must mean it's taking something away from me.
Absolutely. Going back to the scarcity mindset.
Utterly. And it's just like, who is that helping?
Why is there not enough sun for everyone?
Exactly, because of course there is. And it's just like there's absolutely no reason to believe that there's not enough for everybody, because there is. But again, if we're like, griping up against each other, if we're thinking that, like, I'll give you an example. Like, I really do think that when we first, because like I told you earlier, when we first opened up the coffee shop, before we opened it up, I tried to get Starbucks to come here.
Right. Okay.
And then I actually met the head of real estate for Starbucks in New York City at an event. Okay. And then he was just like, no, there's too emerging a market. We're not going to come.
You're not established enough.
No, that market, we're not going to go there. And I was like, okay. Right. And then we were there for a little while, saw him a year later or so, and he was just like, yeah, Starbucks is actually thinking about coming to the neighborhood. And I was just like, it would put us out of business. Oh, okay. Because honestly, our people, in particular Black and brown people, I think look at brands in a way that they don't look at regular people within their own community who are trying to do business development. And so I think on that level, it would just be like I remember like feeling like, oh my God, like this would be so hard. And then the pandemic hit, and then it was over.
It was all shut
like,
down.
So I'm like,
right.
good. I'm glad you're not coming right now.
So what do you think the secret is? I mean, is it branding? Is it just billions of dollars of advertising that separates? Like, I believe you have a dope brand, right? I believe that you can possibly franchise this.
Oh, I think we will.
You're right. Okay.
Totally.
So, Starbucks is waiting for the numbers to make sense for them. Here you come in, and you're just making it happen, right?
Yep.
So, why do you feel that us Black and brown sometimes will look at a corporate structure and just have a little more respect for it?
Yeah.
Right? Why is that?
I really do think that it goes way back to the roots of our country, where we've been led to believe that we're less than.
Okay.
So if it's associated with us, it must be less than something else, than the generally the mainstream and or the white brands who have like put it out in the first place. And until we all start to understand that that's what we've done, and that it's been done to us, and that we don't have to keep doing it, it's gonna keep happening. Yeah. But what's exciting is that, what I have seen is like the kind of community of both practice and support that we've built here. Like I feel a lot more confident than I did, when the director of real estate for Starbucks said he was coming to the South Bronx, right? And which really, like, it felt like a gut punch. Yeah. But now I'm like, we've been building, and we know that people will support us. We might take a hit, but I feel like what we're offering, Starbucks will never offer what we offer.
Well, let's go into client experience, right? So there's so many we can run around, but I just want to touch it because I think it just translates over so many platforms, right? Whether it's like in my business, I do lending, real estate. My business is very intimate. Right. Like people have to like want to share. Yep. And usually and people that first come up, they're like scared, right? Yep. I don't want to tell you how much I have in the bank. I'm like, sir, I don't know what you can qualify for. So
right. Exactly.
It's like, telling a doctor I have a pain. Well, where is it? I can't tell you. Right? So same concept. So I'm like, all right, guys, so you have to understand.
Wow.
So yeah, absolutely. So now I'm like, look, this is, I just give a lot of broad strokes, and this is why I've been on social media for so long. I give a lot of parameters, and I'm like, if this is this, and maybe this, if this is this. Right. And I have to say the same thing in so many different ways to kind of get through to people. And now coming back to this, the self-perception of value, right? When I wanted to unpack that for a minute. You said, people see other owners of colors like them, and I'm like, the price is the price, right? Yes. A cup of coffee is a cup of coffee, but the value, the value is what people have to really have. They have to have a self-value, self-worth, and I think that's a really deep-rooted. I think I want to see is implemented going back into the 1900s, obviously colonialism and stuff like that. And I don't think people understand that yet. No. I don't think that, no. I'm like, yeah. Like, why not you, right? Yes. So it becomes a thing. It becomes a thing like, so I own a bank, right? A mortgage bank. Right. I own a real estate company. Yeah. There's nobody, I'm like a unicorn, right? I'm doing media. Why not? Why not? Right? Why not? Because I remember what started this whole exodus was I got an award one time through a friend of mine. He has a karate school, very, very, successful businessman up in Pelham Bay in the Bronx, Excel Martial Arts, shout out. And he gave me an award, right? And it was simply for, I've been with them, my kids were there for 10 years, but he was like, you've always been a good role model. And I've never considered myself a role model. And I was like, yo, bro, I don't even know what you mean. And he's like, look at all these little kids. He's like, when they turn on the TV, when they go on Instagram, when they go on, they have somebody they can look at and kind of looks like them. So it ignites the idea. So why, maybe me, because now let's get into the media. Let's get into the gatekeepers. When I was growing up, the Spanish people on TV were always the drug dealers, the pimps, the this. There was no Spanish superheroes. No. Right? No. So, or black. Right? Yep. I was watching the show last night about the Black Godfather and on Netflix.
Oh yeah,
talking about Jim Brown. Yep. Talking about Jim Brown, like when he had like a love scene with a white woman, he got death threats. Or what about the Hank Aaron when he was gonna break Babe Ruth's record? Yeah. Death threats.
I know. Yeah. Like that's
sports is based on performance. Shouldn't matter what color you are.
Yeah. Well.
But think about besides the performance, the social pressures that these guys had to deal with. Yeah. Back in the day. And these social pressures they're not as evident. They're much more subtle and subliminal and kind of like chess pieces at this point. What do you think about that? Because I see it only because I'm aware. Right.
Yeah, I don't even know if they're that subtle anymore, to tell you the truth. Like I just, so I'm teaching at Princeton now. I'm a lecturer, which is the first step to like.
Listen, you're on rule with Omar right now. You've made it, right?
Oh, totally.
You've made
Absolutely.
it. I know you've done TED Talks. Don't worry about that.
Oh no,
You've made it
wasn't.
now.
No. Oh, believe me, I know I'm fabulous, but I really do. But in just in terms of like how you move it up, that's all it is. But but I actually completely forgot that Michelle Obama is a Princeton alum.
Oh.
And until I was there,
I was reminded.
Yeah, and I was like, yeah, that's right, because I was actually met up with someone who works there who was actually in her class, so they're like still friends.
Okay.
And so it was really, really interesting because, of course, I read her book, and she had this when she first got there, she's meeting with the college counselor because that's what you do, and literally this woman looked at her and just said, well, I'm not really sure if you're Princeton material.
Hey.
She's already there.
Right.
But it's like, I don't know if you're Princeton material. Mm-hmm. So, and this kind of stuff it always happens,
It happened to me. I went to Lehman College, Lehman High School, and I was my first to graduate from my family from college, and I wanted to go to NYU, right? So NYU, I'm just going, I don't even know what year this was, 92, whatever. It was $150. So I did ask my mom for a money order or whatever, I forgot. I was 16, 17 at the time. And I remember going to the guidance counselor, Ms. Klemper. I hope if she's still alive and watches this, this had an impact on me. But the impact was good. It just kind of said, you know what, now I'm gonna.
Yeah.
So I gave it, I said, look, I want to send this out. Because I didn't, who knew how to do all that stuff back then?
Yeah.
And she was like, well, that's kind of expensive. You sure you want to send this out? Maybe you should go to the CUNY class. I did my backup schools. I did that already, but I wanted to. So just to show you that it's real. And whether she was trying to do something right by me, by saving me $150, but you don't take away somebody's chance or even they want to take your shot, right? So why deflate somebody, right? And you don't know how impressionable, because another guy could have been like, you know what, you're right, and my life could have went a totally different way.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and
absolutely.
And I don't think people understand, like in all these positions, there's certain conversations that have such an impact on a young person, that can change, and instead of making that right, you make that left, and you change.
And I think to your earlier point about actually seeing yourself in that role. Like I know, like having people see, me, a Black woman, a woman of color, from a community like this, accomplishing all the things that I have accomplished, and frankly, dealing with some of the nonsense that I've had to deal with, in order to get here.
You came from a government background, right? No, you didn't. Weren't you working with the government doing?
Never.
Okay, so you were conscious.
I worked with them,
right?
In various partnerships, but no, I've either been in the private sector running my own company, or I worked on the nonprofit.
Nonprofit world.
And but in various projects, we had to interface with the government a lot. But no, I've actually never had a government job. Don't think I ever want one, to tell you the truth. But yeah.
So don't come calling.
Yeah. It's just not what I want to do. But
so Princeton, what are we teaching at Princeton?
Yeah, so teaching a class called Creativity, Innovation, and Design, and the whole idea is, do you want to hold on?
No, just keep going.
Okay. So the whole idea is that for most young people who get into Princeton, like they've been sort of taught how to like have the right answers, get the right grades to get into a school like that, which is true. And basically it served them very well, but it's the kind of reasoning that gets them to that point where you kind of like make, assumptions and reasons based on what you have in front of you. It's not the same as creative thinking at all. And it literally uses a different part of your brain. And so what we're trying to do with that is like to solve like the big, hairy problems in our world. If we can sort of like think creatively about it, then you can come up with design solutions for them. And so it's really like giving folks the confidence to think like outside the box of what they consider just possible. And, because that's basically how people discovered, gravity.
What do you think inspires,
like that.
What do you think inspires creativity? I know there's type A, type B personalities. I have 3 sons, right? All very different individuals. My middle son is most disciplined. You touched on it when you said to get into print. He's in NYU. He knows how to do all that. But if I get a little risky, he's like, no.
Wow.
At 20.
Wow.
Meanwhile, when I was coming up, since there was nowhere to go but up, I grew up differently. I was like, yo, if I don't take this shot, I'm gonna be here, and I don't want to be here. So whatever it takes, what I gotta lose, right? So he's coming from, he's a little more elevated, right?
Right.
He's like, oh, like I have it pretty good, it's not that bad. So it created a very different person.
And you do, and like risk is it's something you have to either. Everybody can be creative. There's no such thing as a person who can't be, but it does involve like assessing risk and recognizing that most of the time, the risk that you think is super risky isn't gonna kill you.
That risky, right?
Okay. Right. Sometimes it might, but for the most part, it probably won't. Like for example, like one of the if you're thinking about a pilot, you don't want a pilot, no matter how good they are, to like do like tricks on the way down as they start landing. You just want them to do the thing.
Good job.
Right. But it might be cute up in the air at some point.
Right. I'm not in it.
Right. Exactly. So there's a point where you take those risks and points when you don't, and the difference is knowing when to or when to not. But for the most part, it's like, you can do it.
Yeah.
And I think that like instilling that confidence in folks, to get comfortable with that little bit of discomfort or a lot of discomfort, if you're deciding that that you want to do something pretty new, like open up a cafe in the middle of the South Bronx,
with unprecedented,
where we haven't had one in 30 years,
right?
And especially when you've got like some folks within the social justice industrial complex like yelling at you because coffee shops are just like what white people do when they gentrify a community, and I'm just like, well, I'm not a white person gentrifying my community. I'm a Black woman from this community who's actually working to support it.
And I want to give a space to everybody.
So again, I could have like shriveled up and crawled away, or just been like, could we have a conversation about it? You don't want to have a conversation? Okay, then I'm gonna keep doing what I'm doing.
I'm just gonna do what I'm doing.
Yeah, right. Exactly. And then if you got some issues, we'll talk. But if you don't, then you can.
So do you have anybody that maybe in the beginning was like, I don't think it's a good idea, Majora, and then now they're like, yo, great idea, you did your thing? Because usually that's what happens,
well,
right?
What was really interesting is because we were protested like 2 years
by the community.
By a small, very tiny group of folks within the community.
Okay.
We at one point, interestingly enough, we were about to move here, and so they staged a protest, calling me a gentrifier and a sellout and all this stuff.
Okay. Did they know you were the owner operator?
Oh yeah.
And they 100%. Still thought that.
Totally,
okay.
Absolutely. And but what was the most ironic thing is that the day that they protested us, we were hosting a workshop that brought together, lenders that were offering 0% interest loans for local homeowners.
Oh, wow.
And small business owners, and also low interest loans as well, because they knew that that there were folks who were like in danger of losing their homes.
Right.
And it was just sort of like, you protested me? Like now?
Right.
Seriously?
At this time?
At this time. And literally, the irony was just so crazy. And so, but it was really crazy to have like, huge banners with like, F Majora, like written on them, and like.
It was personal.
Oh yeah, it was very personal.
Okay.
And they spelled my name right and everything. And but it was so fascinating because it was bad and it was loud. They had bullhorns and they were just like raising their middle fingers.
They made an event. Right?
Oh, like you would not believe. It was quite a circus. And so, but look, I'm a business owner,
right.
And I was like, what kind of impact is this going to have? The most amazing thing was that literally the next day, we had the best day ever at this cafe.
Because everybody knew about your place.
And it was just, but what was most interesting was the people that would come in to talk, who would like, again, often see them in the neighborhood, but they would never even come in. They were like, yo, I saw what happened yesterday. That's a bull. Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And
I'm
gonna buy some, you know what, I've never even been in here before, but that was like ridiculous. And here, I'm gonna buy some. I don't even like coffee, but I'm gonna buy some. And I was just like, so it was actually good. I was like, dude, should we like stage a protest like every now and then to like bring more
galvanize
people in?
your followers.
But it did.
Yeah.
It absolutely did, because that's when I knew without a shadow of a doubt, because before I was just kind of like, maybe we are really stupid for trying.
Maybe we were not in
like
the right
this.
place.
Yeah.
Right.
Or not the right time or whatever. But then I realized, you know what? No, this was exactly what we needed to do, because when that like the little craziness that was out there, they showed themselves, but it also showed us for who we were and who we were and how people saw what we were doing.
Yeah.
And it made it really clear. And it was just, you want to talk about something that built my confidence? That protest actually built my confidence.
Oh, so that kind of like gave you conviction. You're like, yo,
totally.
I'm on the right path.
Because of the response that it gave to other folks who saw us and knew what we were trying to do, but but then that like made them go, but well, wait a second, like they're not doing anything wrong. Like this
No.
girl's from like right up the street. Like how are you
Yeah.
going to talk about her like
Oh wow,
that?
she's serving good coffee.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's like nah. And and by the way, the place is pretty dope.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
yeah,
it was kind of nice.
To create community, you have to give, and I'm talking about physical. I'm talking about the internet, the virtual. You have to give people a safe place, a place to feel safe.
Right.
A place where they have common ground.
Yes.
And that's the experience you're giving, right? Like if you love coffee, it's one thing. If you love hip hop and coffee, it's double whammy.
Yep.
If you love open mic or a DJ at night,
Right.
you got the triple, right? So like people have to understand, like, and for you to like, it's self-funded, right? For people to understand, like, all right, let's go into entrepreneurship. All right. So I'm an owner of 4 different platforms. I incorporated in 2012. I was recruited, or however you want to call it. I was recruited into the banking business in 2005. Before that, I had a liquor store in 99 in South Bronx, 159 3rd.
Wow.
And so I met this guy who owned an investment bank. A mortgage bank, and he was a real estate speculator. So he was like, look, I'm from the Bronx originally. I want to buy some property out here. So if you find anything that you think I can buy, then let me know. I'll pay you 6% commission. This is before I knew about real estate. I didn't know anything. He's like, this is what I'll pay you, right? So I didn't even like going back to like, I didn't even know what I was supposed to be paid. Right. But I was like, well, the numbers are pretty big. So 6% of anything is pretty big. So we find a deal. We found a building. The guy was from down south. He had bought it, but totally mismanaged. He was losing his tax liens and stuff like that. So we gave him a decent price for it. We closed that deal. Then I found another one. And I got paid, and I was like, "Wow, okay." So then we found another one. It was a family. Somebody had passed away. The kids were infighting, but nobody wanted to pay for the property. So either somebody was going to lose it. You know what I'm saying? So I came in. I said, "Look, he's willing to pay this," and they were like, "All right, great." So the second one. So then he calls me into the bank in Long Island, because every mortgage bank in America was in Long Island at that point.
Yep.
And he was like, "Look, man, you're good with people, you're good with numbers." He was like, "What do you make at the liquor store?" And I told him. He was like, "You can make 5 times that here." He's like, "But you got to be here. Like you can't you're doing great, doing your thing, but you got to focus up. So if you wanna change your life." And I don't think, had I not met that guy and had he not needed my complexion to penetrate the neighborhood, I would have ever gotten the opportunity to learn this whole dynamic of an industry. Because this industry is the liquidity, the capital that runs most of everything else.
The world. Yeah.
Right. So then I hired 2 people to stay at the store, and I worked there from September to December. And at the end I did my taxes. And I made like $150 in the 3 months under myself, and the store made $110. But after I pay everybody, I was lending the store money. So that's why I was like, yo, I gotta go. No offense. So I didn't sell it. I didn't have a monster exit like everybody talks about. I just shut it down. I liquefied. And I shut it down. I started doing this, and then I learned, and I learned to the point that when the meltdown came in 2008, I kind of learned to move in other ways, because again, my ability to talk to the people, because before that, banking was very telephonic, where anybody qualified. So all you did was stay on the phone and keep calling. Eventually, somebody qualified, because they didn't care about your FICO. There was equity everywhere, because they were just artificially inflating the market. So when the collapse came, either you were being resourceful or you were crying about no resources. There was nobody qualified. So I kind of made my move. I thought of it as, well, if I'm at ground zero now, and I expand my base, when I grow, because it has to come back. It's all cyclical.
Comes up at some point.
I'll be the guy, and that's what I did, and that's how I'm here. But in the beginning, I remember wearing a suit and having to meet my wife, who worked a 9 to 5 at that time, to put gas in my car, because I didn't have any money. Whatever money we made, it wasn't enough. But you had to look the part, right? You had to wear a suit. You had to meet people, but people don't understand that hustle. They don't understand that struggle.
They don't.
You have to believe when no one else believes.
Totally.
I only mention it here because this is more of a, this is a great hub, but people have to understand that it's a great resource, but you got to support it.
Absolutely.
That becomes the thing. And I'm not saying you got to spend every dollar, but if you're willing to run across the Dunkin', across Hunts Point, why not here if the coffee's more it's superior? Like,
Right.
what's the thinking?
Well, I mean, I think that part of it is just, like our, sort of like, dependence on brands, feeling that there's something like just innately wrong, with us, on some level. I think that is real. And, and there's like, big pushes for brown and black owned businesses, but I think it is a bit of a dirty little secret that we're not exactly supported as much as people would like to say.
And we got to say, it's our own people.
It's our own. That's what I'm talking about. From our own people.
Yeah.
Look, I'm delighted. When white folks from Omaha like read about us on Instagram and go, I'm gonna buy something online.
I'm coming.
I'm like, cool. I'm like, will we sell it? Absolutely.
Right.
But does it warm my heart more? When I see my own people like
My
walking
locals.
through the door
Yeah.
and being like,
See a tribe,
yes,
right?
I'm like,
we're very tribal by nature.
for them.
Yeah.
And but again, I think that is the same way that we've got to get to the point where we understand that our communities, like we were taught to measure success by how far we get away from our communities. And then, and I can speak like from, unfortunately, real experience on this. My dad bought the house I grew up in the 1940s. By the time both my parents died, nobody, like, and I'm the youngest of 10.
Wow.
And none of my
I know
siblings,
that about you.
Yeah, none of my siblings wanted to keep the house. They were just like, we good Majora, you do the community thing, but we're not expecting, but we don't want anything to do with it.
Right.
And I couldn't get them to keep the house.
Right.
I literally couldn't get them to do that. So the house was sold to a predatory speculator.
Oh.
And the house is now worth like 3 times as much.
I'm sure.
And as it was, and so things we don't talk about it, holiday dinners. But I couldn't get them to do it. In the meantime, I squatted a house a few years before that.
I read about this. Yeah.
I squatted that place, and now we've got all sorts. And then we bought other property,
Right.
and so that was our first taste of development,
Okay.
where it's like and we are landlords. We definitely think we're pretty decent ones, and we provide a great a place quality of life for our tenants. But we're also building generational wealth.
Right.
And I don't have any kids. I don't know what I'm going to do with it, but I got we'll figure it out. And but I feel like that's the fact that so many of us, that my story unfortunately is not a common one.
Right.
In this community.
Right.
It's like I can, so much of the property that is here is actually not owned by people in this community. Our
Right.
home ownership rate has actually gone down over the past 20 years from like over 20% down to like less than 7.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
And it's just like, and so that's why, when I hear of folks like, acting like, but now we're worried about like being gentrified or, not having enough, support for local businesses. And I'm just like, we have to ask ourselves, like, what are we doing, and how do we participate in that, or how have we participated in that? Like I just think of like during the really, tough times, like literally when this space, back when I was in high school, this was a crack house.
Oh, okay.
Like this wall was all these windows were like
Boarded up?
bricked up.
Okay.
And there was a big hole right behind me. And this was just like a little crack den, one of the many in the neighborhood. And now it's obviously not, but I do think about the fact that when we lost in the South Bronx in particular, 60% of the population, the housing stock was literally being given away by the city. There was almost no push
You
to
can buy
talk
everything.
about.
You can buy lots for $1.
Yeah, and there was almost no push to say like, how do we like not just get rentals out of this, but how do we build equity and home ownership and business and local business development? There wasn't a whole lot of that, and so now we're still like dealing with this perpetual rental class of people.
Yeah.
That
And it's getting more expensive.
it's getting more expensive, and we have zero in the game. And then we were wondering like, why do we keep getting pushed out of places? And I'm just like, because we haven't been thinking about how do we really think about building equity, building wealth.
How do they lay roots, right? Like people think, oh, but then again, it's taught because your parents don't know anything, they can't teach you anything.
Right.
So either you're going to be that X factor, you're gonna be
Right.
that special person that wants to raise their consciousness,
Right.
or you're just going to go with the flow, which is 90% of the people.
Yeah, no, it's true, and that's why like so I feel like for the people that we have been able to reach and meet, and it's not everybody, but I think it's a pivotal a pivotal group of folks who are going like, where just you see the light bulb going on over their head, where they're like, wait a second, why am I only thinking about like my capacity, where it's like, if I'm going to do great for myself, then I've got to leave my neighborhood to do it and go and take my talent and enrich somebody else's. Or, that neighborhoods like this are just innately wrong. Like there's something just wrong with being from a place like this, almost like we've got a stain. And, and I remember that, when I got into college, the kind of, that's literally when the South Bronx was still, it was smoldering. The burnings were gone.
The Bronx is burning,
but
it was burnt already.
It was burnt already. And like those images were still front and center in people's minds. This was like 1984.
Right.
And, so and I was so ashamed to be from here. And
that's hard.
Yeah. And, and like both the white folks and the people of color, at Wesleyan University, which was the college I went to, they were all like horrible about it, just like horrible. And, so of course there was a sense of shame and just disappointment in myself. But, looking back, it's just like, we didn't make up the conditions that made the Bronx burn.
We were just born into it.
Yeah. We didn't, we didn't do that. So it was done to us. And then on a certain level, many of us were just sort of like, we're just going to try to get like just hold on a little bit. And which meant like, just, take care of people, house them, but not necessarily like give them the aspirational tools to grow even further, not to build wealth, but just to like have an affordable housing, which is, through rentals.
Be happy to have a place to live.
Yeah. And I feel like that's, we are still in that mindset of like, low expectations of what our communities can be. And I'm like, no, like, I mean, I don't care if it's like, wealth creation, or vaccinations right now, if we're like still in the middle of COVID. I watch like, why don't in communities like this, why are we only talking about things like affordable housing? Which is code for like housing for like very low income people, versus why are we like not building wealth through generations, for folks to have and to hold further down the line. We're not doing things like that. And I'm just looking at, so why is the wealth gap, so high, so wide rather, between Black and brown communities and white ones? Because ain't nobody talking about things like, how do we build wealth? Or at least like from like the bigger voices, whether it's our elected officials or the nonprofits that rule, places like this, who are the ones who actually do have, I think, more skin in the game in terms of
But they pick up a lot of real estate too.
That's what I'm talking about. That's exactly what I'm talking about. So it's just like, so when electeds are working with real estate developers to build affordable housing, it's not because they'd like, poor people. It's because there's a huge amount of money in it. To
tax
do
breaks.
The subsidies are there. So
and the game is different because it's only 10% of the housing has to be affordable to qualify for tax credits. But let me give you a quick house hack, right? So let's say we have two families. Let's say we have two sisters. Let's say it's my mom and her sister, right? And they have $25,000 and they make, I don't know, I'm making it up right now, $50,000 each. You can buy a two-family with 3.5% down, $500,000 with $25,000 down, and your mortgage will be about, in the Bronx, $2,400, which is rent for each of you. But you now have something to give or leave a legacy for your family.
Exactly.
But that's the thing where people are going back to separatism.
Right.
They don't think about, what do we have? Let's be resourceful. Well, I have this, you have this. Well, let's put it together. And then, but also have the business mind later, because then I get caught up with the kids that I hear later saying, well, I don't want to pay my mom rent. I'm like, but if you're going to pay rent somewhere else, why wouldn't you pay mom rent? I've had these conversations.
Oh, I know you have. Yeah. Oh, no. One of my favorite, it was that, not, I'm being facetious, but there was like, remember there was a council race or congressman, for this area a little while back, and someone called me up, asking for my vote, and I asked, so I was like, how are you supporting like the homeowners here, because there's not a whole lot of love. And this was like during the pandemic, and many of them are actually trying to keep their mortgages above water, and all that stuff. And this person yelled at me. Literally yelled at me and said, well, what about the people who can't afford a home? And I was just like, first of all, that is not how you get my vote. Number one. So I can assure you, your candidate is not going to get it. So you can just hang
up now.
Yeah. But it was just like, but secondly, it's like, no one said anything about like not supporting them. But this is a group of people in their constituents who actually do provide believe it or not, if you look at your numbers, which you clearly haven't, many of us are actually, renting to people at affordable rates.
Right.
So
Well, not market range.
yeah.
Right.
So how about we look at that and make sure that we're preserving the wealth that these families have, because there aren't many of us.
I feel that Hunts Point is looked at more as a commercial, industrial.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, like all you
Land-wise,
hear about
totally.
is
The market.
the produce and I forgot who came in here.
The
Fresh Direct.
No, they're over in
Down there.
Mott Haven.
Okay. Okay. Who came up here? Somebody recently, I think.
I
Or is it
mean,
just
we've
the
got
market?
the fish market,
Okay.
produce market, and the meat market.
Right.
So literally almost 70% of produce and some meat actually come right here.
Come here, and you have the asthma rates in this area up the roof.
We do.
And it's obviously tied to all the trucks running through the streets. But nobody, like, they talked about it for a minute, and now nobody.
They still talk about it, but it's not like, I mean, it's going to be everywhere. And I think like the whole Fresh Direct question, which is something that I definitely took some heat on, which I'm sorry that they didn't do what they were hoping to do, which was actually get a compressed natural gas station, which actually has 0% emissions for their
Okay.
truck. And they just never got to do it because people were just like hating, on the company, because they were like a truck-based business, but
Right.
they were a truck-based business, but where they ended up locating would have, like, honestly, a company that didn't have jobs, that didn't have the kind of the kind of goods that actually people in the Bronx could actually access. It could have been like a waste facility that
Right.
could have come right there, which didn't have any jobs, but still had plenty of trucks and could do all sorts of things. It was. I just wish there was more like interaction and some understanding about like how could we make this actually work for everybody concerned, but it didn't happen that way.
Let me just touch on something that I just had a random thought, right? So in every lower income area, there's a joke. There's a joke. People say this joke all the time. Once I see a Starbucks, I know I'm okay in an okay neighborhood. Now, if I go to another neighborhood and I see the liquor store next to the chicken spot, next to the check cashing spot. Now, what people don't have what the people have to understand, the viewers have to understand is something I want to say, and especially in your presence, is that the way you spend your money is a form of influence.
Yep.
Understand whether it's $5 because it compounds. It's like
Right.
something you do every day.
Right.
So think like what they have to do is think about that. Like, I'm not demonizing any business because any business serves its purpose, but you can't sit there and say, "Oh, I wish this wasn't here," but you visit it every day. You know what I'm saying? Like it's just like me saying I'm gonna lose weight, but I'm at McDonald's every day. You're like, "Oh my, what are you doing?" But same concept. And I was trying to talk to a few of my friends. I'm like, "Hey, that's not gonna work." I think it's important for people to understand like imagery is powerful, right? In context, like we were talking off camera, there's not enough conversations like this, and if there are, they're usually the pinnacle is Oprah, right? Like only Oprah can be super successful.
Only Oprah.
And the truth of the matter is no, anybody can be if you're resourceful, if you use whatever you have, like you said before, creativity. What was the second one? It's
Innovation,
right? As long as you're creative and then you can innovate, you can make a platform. And this is kind of like what I've created. So let's go into your development. So tell me about the mission of development and why you do that, how you got into that, and what you're doing now.
I decided that I was going to be a real estate developer. It's interesting because I wanted.
But you don't just wake up and say, "Yeah, right."
Didn't even.
How did the inception of the idea become?
We had been working on. So I started in the nonprofit sector. Trying to work around sustainable, solid waste.
So you were working within a system, right? Okay.
And because we were the city and state were building waste facilities here, and it was just like had an impact on us environmentally, economically, and socially, and it was just like this is bad. And so I worked on projects that literally sort of changed the landscape. So I transformed dumps into parks. We did green collar job training and placement systems to get people, with having both a personal financial stake in the improvement of the environment. But it was really clear that, and I didn't understand it at the time, but it was clear that the way our land was used and who was doing the development.
And who was doing the deciding?
Yes.
Right. I want to clear that context.
It made it really clear that like it kept our community in this impoverished, economically vulnerable place.
Right.
And it was just like, why does it always happen when only when a neighborhood changes that the neighborhood gets better.
What changes that? What creates that change?
I think creating
As a developer, I
more
think you can give a real
economic diversity within a
Right.
community. Like I noticed that the only type of housing that was being, pushed here was specifically for very, very low income people.
Right.
But
So they were basically steering,
oh yeah,
right?
totally.
And
then
in a large scale.
and you saw it with the kind of economic developments were there. So there you had like the architecture, of the liquor store, the 99-cent store, the health clinic, places where you
Things
can
that
buy
they'll
drugs.
need, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Right,
It was
right.
only so we call it poverty level economic maintenance.
Poverty level economic.
Yeah,
maintenance.
and it was just like
Write that down.
this is not cool.
Right.
And so, but it seemed like the best approach was having more mixed income housing.
Right.
And mixed use commercial development, really creating opportunities for job creation, local business development, and for people that were born and raised in this community who had quote unquote kind of made it, they could also find places like beautiful places for them to live too.
Right.
Thus, in creating more economic diversity in communities like
Right.
this. And we had proposed to do that at the Spofford Youth.
Right. That's shut down now, right?
It's been shut down.
Okay.
And we, back in like 2011, I think, actually proposed to the Bloomberg administration to use that space as a mixed income and mixed use housing development, and really pushed it. And at the time, they were totally into it. And then, of course, they were there was another election, and they were all gone.
They were out, yeah.
And the De Blasio administration didn't want to live up to like those goals that they said they wanted to,
Right.
and instead built what is essentially a low-income housing project with no,
Really?
yeah. And it was a difficult time, but it's something that we really do believe wholeheartedly, and that we think is going to be the difference between our communities actually thriving and prospering, and also giving people opportunities, especially for those that are led to believe they need to move out of our neighborhoods in order to live in better ones, to think that, well, no, maybe I can set up roots in my own neighborhood. And so, we haven't been able to build that kind of housing here or in communities like this just yet, although we do have a project going on in Indianapolis right now.
Right.
Which is basically a smaller version of mixed income housing with homeownership and, local opportunities for business development as well, mostly in the food space. And we've got that opportunity going on there. But we decided to build this coffee shop, as sort of like the one
Was
of
this
the
like the
first
incubator,
steps.
the first one?
Mhm.
Right.
Sort of like the first step to say like let people in our own communities like look again at our neighborhoods and sort of see the value and the talent that's in it
Yeah,
already.
look at the cute things that we have, right?
Look at it,
Because
and
they take pride in it.
Yeah, but you
You
got to
be-
build it.
You become proud.
And if they don't see it, they won't believe it.
Right.
And
Unfortunately, so the vision usually comes first, the visionary, right? But then you have the person who can execute the idea.
Right.
And,
Yeah.
and
so
then
like-
see, I'm trying to like break down the life of an entrepreneur,
Mm-hmm.
right? You have the idea, then you execute your idea, and then you got to give the rest of everybody else to kind of catch up,
Right.
and you got to be able to hold out.
Well, no, I mean, even before putting the idea out there, you got to make sure before you put your beta, test out there, you've got to make sure that there's somebody that somebody actually sees value in it.
Okay.
Right? And that's why we would ask folks, because if you've got a great idea and
So
nobody
before
else
that, right?
thinks it's great,
Going back to the story, right? You had a survey,
right?
before you
exactly.
did that. Right.
So
Okay.
if nobody thinks your idea is great, then it's just your idea and nobody cares, because ain't nobody gonna pay for
Make it
it.
in your house.
Right. So exactly, make it in your house and you like for yourself.
Yeah.
But if you want to see, and the thing is, like, to be an early innovator in a place like this, it's hard. It is super.
Have you had a lot of
duper hard.
support from other businesses? Like, I think every hip hop legend from the Bronx should be up in here.
Oh, I think so too.
Yeah.
But
Have you had support?
They haven't just yet, but
Okay.
we're hopeful. Well, we've been visited by Fab Five Freddy, by Cool Herc, came by.
Okay. But what about
Sway
Joe?
was here.
Fat Joe?
Nope.
Slick Rick?
Nope.
Okay.
Nope.
We gotta get these
Nope,
guys
nope,
over
nope.
here.
That'd be really kind of nice.
Yeah.
Because again, but that's the thing. It's like,
Yeah.
are we talking about, like, yeah, we support Black-owned businesses and brown-owned businesses, and like,
But I
we
never
support our
see
hood.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
You
I
know.
never see you.
So I mean,
And
that's
going back to my statement about where you spend your money is an influence.
And where you spend your time.
Right.
Like, if you make it big, do you move to Jersey? Or do you actually go, okay, wait, what am I going to do here in my own hood? And I think that's a really important a question that we need to ask. And those are hard questions.
Yeah.
And especially in communities like this, it's like, believe me, I'm not saying to anybody, don't live your life, but recognize that when we decide that our lives are worth living outside of our hoods, what we're essentially saying to the world is that our hoods are not really valuable.
Right.
That's what we're saying. And again, it doesn't take everybody to be okay, I'm going to stay and I'm going to support, but some of us should. And
well, I mean, look, let's say when
in some way, shape, or form. That's
yeah,
all.
I grew up on 196 Jerome, but I was in an apartment building, right? So I can't stay there because I'm renting. So I bought a house in Pelham Bay, and then I bought another house in New Rochelle. But I'm very conscious of how I spend my money.
I got that.
And that's
how
the
you
thing.
and you. So the fact that you were no, okay, we're going to do this event and come and support, a woman of color who owns a business, in the hood. You could have done it anywhere.
A fellow entrepreneur in the struggle.
Right.
It just really is.
You
because
could have done it
it
anywhere,
is.
but where you decide to choose where you were going to spend that kind of sponsorship was amazing.
Yeah.
And
and the value is there.
Yes,
I mean, and
totally.
going back to that, is just that I believe, and then we talked about this off camera, I'll talk about it again, is that you have your galas, which have a place. You have all that. But there are places where, maybe Friday night, because they paid all their bills, ain't nothing to do because I don't got no money.
Right.
But here's this event I can go to that we had singers, we had a DJ, we had sponsored open bar. I mean, we had everything.
Yep.
For them to give them a place to breathe, right?
People got dressed up.
Right,
People
yeah.
But that's the thing. Is do we often feel that way about our own communities? We're led to believe that we need to go someplace else to experience that.
Right.
And the fact, and you saw the joy.
Yeah.
That was here. People literally went home and got dressed up.
Yeah. They came home, took a shower, got dressed up, and came back down.
And came back downstairs.
Yeah.
And I'm
they respected it.
Says something.
Yeah.
And it's something that we all have inside that we want to share. And it's a beautiful thing. I've just, one of my favorite pictures of me out there is with all my girls, people that I met right
Hanging
here.
out, yeah.
And we're lined up, inside, the outdoor seating of the subway car, and we all dressed to the nines, smoking cigars. And it's fabulous. That's kind of stuff is, you can't put a price on that.
Yeah. You got to create those experiences.
Yes.
You have to create those experiences.
And so it's all about creating more experiences like that, so that people can see and feel the value in their own lives. And know that it has something to do with them.
Yeah.
As opposed
I think
to,
it's too much self-depreciating behavior.
Yep.
And I believe that people usually measure their value. That's a whole psychological conversation we can go into. But I believe the primary breadwinner, whether male or female, values what they can do for their family as that's their only self-worth.
Yes.
But what people don't understand is that time is the ultimate currency, right? So being there, just sitting there watching TV with your kids, they love that. They're like, "Oh, Dad, what do you think?" I'm like, "Oh, that's great." I'm like, "What am I watching?" But that's the thing I was told. Meanwhile, when I grew up, I was a latchkey baby, so I didn't have those experiences because they were busy trying to make it neat, and I'm not mad at that, but I wanted more.
Right.
So me going to college, the first lecture you get told by your parents is get a stable job, work for the city, and I was like, I don't think that's me. I'm like,
but that's them trying to protect you,
right? But
and support
because
you.
they started for such a deficit.
Absolutely.
They're like, yo, just hold on to it, on to it. And I'm like, no, Dad, I think I'm gonna go that way. And they're like. And you get the
it
snarls.
reminds me of Oprah Winfrey when I think it was her grandmother who told her, you know what, you just need to get yourself a good job as a maid with some good white people.
There you go.
And you'll be fine. And she was just like, grandma.
Yeah. Look at the thinking behind that.
But again, it's it so comes from a place of love.
And she's talking from where she came from.
Yeah.
Right. That's her reality.
And so it's I ain't mad at anybody, again, who either feel like they need to leave their neighborhood in order to, do something big, or those who, feel like there's something wrong, with us, because we've been conditioned for that. We've been conditioned.
And we're talking about generations of conditioning. It's not going to stop at one talk or one thing. But if we keep sending the message out,
totally,
hopefully we change somebody's mind.
And that's all we can do.
Yeah. So Where can people reach you if they want to talk to you?
So,
Please look at the camera and say that.
Okay, so you can contact us on Instagram at Boogie Down Grind, and here often, and at Majora Carter is also my other Instagram.
I gotta follow you there. All right, guys, we're gonna sum it up. We will probably have another event before winter comes in,
Yes.
so stay tuned, and I'll make sure I publicize it so everybody can show up and show support. And remember, where you spend your money is an influence of what happens. So remember that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ooh, beans.